Please like, share and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Grandmaster Mon Hamilton. I'm back with another chess.com bullet video as part of the series here, and today I want to talk to you about how to checkmate and how to avoid getting checkmated. But at the end of the game, there's always going to be that time scramble where you have to construct a checkmate as fast as possible, or you have to be as tricky as you can with your king to try to avoid getting mated or make it difficult for your opponents. And I have a few tips and tricks that I think might help you with these two things. So let's start with a basic position where you have a king and queen and you need to checkmate. The first thing to remember is the important squares. The key squares in the position are c3, f3, f6, and c6. Once your queen goes on these squares, the checkmate is very easy to accomplish, and I can show you by demonstrating in this position right here. For example, king b2, king b4, king c2, queen c3. And once our queen reaches c3, we're able to pre-move the next move. Usually there's enough time to see where the king is going to go. If it's check, then you're guaranteed to get the king on the last rank. The nice thing is that if it's not a check, it's even better, because now after this move, I'm going to pre-move queen there, because I understand the only other square that he can go to is king a2. So it's actually more common to reach this critical position when it's not check, and that's actually better if you're trying to checkmate. So the king goes here, you quickly pre-move this, then you pre-move your king to c3, and you pre-move queen to b2 mate. And that's a fourth sequence that you can do in 0.4 seconds if you're pre-moving, and it's very quick. So try to get your queen to one of those important key squares when you're going for that checkmate. Now, you're not always going to have one queen on the board. Sometimes you're going to have two queens on the board. And I want to take a look at a position like this, where white is about to queen his pawn and have two queens and go for a checkmate. Let's examine what might happen. King f5, let's say b8 equals queen, king e4, queen c5, and this is the right thing to do as far as technique. You want to do the staircase or the ladder, however you want to call it. It's a very good technique. 1, 2, 1, 2, and then you checkmate on the last rank. Now, let's see what happens if we are pre-moving. King here, pre-move, 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 stalemate. This is really common, it happens all the time. So I just think it's really important. If you see this possibility happening, you can plan ahead, or if you want to use this trick, you can use it all the time. And if it wasn't going to be stalemate, you're going to waste the move. But if it was going to be a stalemate, you're going to save yourself every time. So always when you get to this position, pre-move queen here, and then pre-move queen there. So if your opponent's king goes here, sure, you might be wasting a move, but then you get your mate. But if the king goes here instead, you notice how your pre-move is going to be check. It's going to force the king back, and then you give another check, and you give a mate. So you have to be really careful about this. If we go back to the starting position, you'll see that it's possible even if we put our pieces the other way. Let's say white starts by going this way with check, queen e8, king f5, queen d7. Again, white's doing the right thing, staircase technique, but you got to watch out for this stalemate. So once again, I think it's important to use this pre-move trick, check, and then go for this. So do that little stutter step right before you execute the checkmate, so that you do not stalemate your opponent. Now, king and rook against king. This one's a tricky one. In bullet, I recommend this technique for executing the checkmate. The box, which you guys may know, which is the idea of always cutting the king off in a box. So rook e5, and as soon as you have the option, let's say here, as soon as the king goes down, I don't recommend anything except this move. Once the king gets here, this is a really powerful position for the king and the rook, because if the king goes backwards, you just keep following. And as soon as the king goes here, you just wait with your rook anywhere. Let's say here, king goes down, king goes up, and you see how quickly I'm able to deliver that checkmate. Now if we go back to this position, and the king goes over, I can give a check. If the king goes here, you got to remember this pattern. You always wait with your rook, anywhere you want here. And then you can deliver a mate. Now, if our opponent decides to go like this, and we get him slowly into the corner here, then you'll see that this is how you execute checkmate. But one final thing, which is important to remember, if the king goes into the corner and you happen to get this position where it's your move and there's no mate in one, then it's always important to remember the same trick I've been mentioning with the king and rook. You bring the rook back one square, and this can all be done by pre-moves. You bring it back, and then you deliver the mate. So it's a good trick to remember. I like to box the king out rather than trying to game the opposition and give checks. I think it's a faster technique, and when you can, try to take the opposition and use this weird sort of L formation right here, where if you get a position, let's say like this, king c5, king here, let's say king b2, and king c2. This is an important position to remember, because if this was the last rank, we would play here, and that would be checkmate. Because it's not the last rank, we're able to kick the king back further and further, and we wait again, and then we deliver a checkmate. Finally, it's really important to remember what happens when you are the king, and you're running around trying not to get mated. This is a great example right here. Take a look at what black should do. Do not take these pieces. Instead, use them as a human meat shield. I'm not going to take either of them, and what's most likely to happen is my opponent's going to check me, might check me again, might check me again. Again, I'm not going to take that knight. I'm going to go here, and you can see how difficult I've made it for my opponent. I'm actually in a stalemate position right now. So it's quite possible that I either get a draw here, or my opponent continues to give me these checks. And you see how hard it is to actually mate when you don't take the pieces that are free. So that's an important trick to remember, and I'll give you one final example of that. If you're in this position with black, and your opponent is getting a queen, it's a really good idea to try to hide behind your opponent's pawns. If he gives you a check, don't take this pawn. Instead, play king here. It's really annoying for people to deal with a king that just won't take your own pawns or pieces and uses them as a shield. Because your opponent's pieces that are in the way, you can capture them. But your own pieces, sometimes in the bullet time scramble, when you're pre-moving your queen, it's hard to get over here and move all these pawns out of the way. So try to use those tricks if you're trying to escape checkmate from your opponent. Try to use the pieces and pawns on the board as shields for your king, and understand that if it's just two queens on the board, or one rook, or a rook and a queen, it's really easy to deliver a checkmate. But as soon as you introduce a knight or a bishop on the board, then it becomes a lot harder. So vice versa, if you're white in this situation, I recommend just getting that bishop way out of the way, pushing these pawns up, try to make it as simple as possible, and don't let your pieces get in the way of your opponent. So if we look back at the previous example, what would I do as white from the starting position? I would make my queen, probably give a check. After the king goes to c3, I would play a move like knight here and bishop here. Make it really easy. And then I would just bring my king and checkmate as though I only have a king and a queen against a king. It's much easier. Try not to deal with these extra pieces on the board. Sometimes they can lead to stalemate issues. So I hope those tricks help you out when you're trying to finish off a checkmate, or when you're trying to be very elusive at the end of the game. But they've worked really well for me, especially when you're trying to deliver a checkmate with two queens. Be very careful of that stalemate, as well as try to remember some of these patterns for delivering a checkmate to the enemy king. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time.